What's going on, everybody? Got Eric here in the front seat, Perry there in the back, looking like a fucking weirdo trying to tell a ghost story or some shit.
Heard a thump from upstairs.
So today we actually got to see a pretty cool film to see in theaters. This one's called Solaris.
Directed by Steven Soderbergh. No, I'm kidding.
No, not that shitty sequel starring George fucking Clooney. This is written and directed by Andrei Tarkovsky, who is a Russian film director. And the only Tarkovsky film that I've seen before this was Stalker.
Mirror for me. I've never seen Stalker.
And Perry, what have you seen?
I've seen Mirror, Stalker, and of course this one.
Okay.
Yeah, including this one.
So Perry's seen more than anybody, I guess.
Yep.
So me personally, I really appreciated and definitely respect Stalker. I actually have a review for that. Please go check it out. But, you know, one problem that I had with that film is that I just found that it wasn't really super engaging, or at least not engaging as I wanted it to be. That film to me just felt a little draggy, even though I thought every frame of it was absolutely stunning and beautiful. But, so just with that in mind, I went into Solaris a bit skeptical, but knowing that I was going to get something that was visually stunning. And guys, it's visually stunning.
All of his films are.
I mean, at this point, calling Tarkovsky's film stunning is like calling water wet. Like, you just kind of know it. You know it's going to be just a really beautiful looking film. But I gotta say, coming out of it, I think I enjoyed this just a little bit more than Stalker, but I felt like I almost have a lot of similar issues that I had with this film that I have with Stalker. But just to get into all the positives, like we said, it is like every frame of this film, at least in my opinion, is really, really beautiful to look at. And just the way that Tarkovsky stylizes the camera, almost every moment of this film has some sort of like camera movement going on, some sort of stylistic camera movement going on, and that's just really nice to see a film director just put so much care and detail into how the camera moves. But you know, on top of that, one thing that I really enjoyed out of this film, a bit more than Stalker, was its philosophical, thematic material. With Stalker, I definitely like enjoyed it. I didn't hate it or anything. But with Stalker, it definitely did feel a little bit unnatural, and I could tell that Tarkovsky was perhaps just trying to really project, you know, what he finds passion in, at least with the certain subjects that were discussed in that film. And with Solaris, I think it came off a bit more natural, and for me, it was a little bit more thought-provoking as well. And, yeah. And I guess let me try to think of any other positives that I liked about it, besides the fact that it was like visually stunning, because I'm honestly a sucker for that kind of stuff. Like, if there's a film that's just like aesthetically stunning, like, usually I'm just like, hell yeah, like I'll give it huge brownie points for that. But there are things about this film that did kind of bother me, and really my ultimate issue that I had with it is that I felt like it wasn't very ambiguous at all, and a lot of the dialogue, I don't know if a lot, maybe I should rephrase that, but there was a decent amount of dialogue in this film that I felt was a little bit too expositional and was only there really to make sure the audience understands what's going on, and that was a little bothersome. And even in the first act of this film, I think the first act of this film is probably the weakest act. And I don't know if y'all agree with that.
I do. Yeah, I do.
I completely agree.
Not that it's bad. Like, I don't think any act of this film is bad. I just think there are definitely ones that are stronger than others. But the first act of this film felt just like it's just there to like inform the audience of the setup. Like, the whole setup felt like a very intentional setup. A lot of it didn't feel the most natural, and that it was just only there to make sure that the audience is aware of the exact setup that's going to set up for the entire film. But, yeah, that was really my ultimate issue with this film. It's just like some of the dialogue just felt like a little ham-fisted, and it's like, and again, on top of that, that leads to the film being less ambiguous, especially the ending. It's crazy because I almost have a love-hate thing going on with the ending, because I really, like, once the film ended, I had a smile on my face. I was like, I don't know, like, I enjoyed it, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like we didn't really need that last shot. Even though I personally think that it was a nice looking shot, it's just, again, it's another thing where the film was just kind of like telling, just making sure that everybody in the audience knows what the hell's going on, even though they already kind of visually inferred what was happening, and they could have just left it a bit more ambiguous than what it did. But, yeah, I guess that's my quick little rundown. I probably have more to add to it, but anybody else want to just go ahead and give their general thoughts on this?
Let me just say, I think it's no secret to anybody who knows my film taste that I would love kind of challenging and dark movies. And this is probably the most somber movie that I've probably ever seen. Like something like bringing up my boy again, like a Von Trier film. Like those things are like overtly like depressing. This just felt incredibly haunting, existential, methodical, beautiful, but still very challenging and introspective and haunting. Like just, but in a way that felt very natural and felt very human, and kind of like obviously everybody who knows this film like knows it's about the human condition and kind of like deconstruction of it, really. And in terms of like just other parts of the movie besides themes, I also thought the acting was great. I loved the set design. Like, even though, no, I don't know. Yeah, I like the simplicity of like the space thing. Or I'm sorry, I'm not good with the space station, and even the house that he lives in. Yeah, I thought that was all good, and I agree with Carlos where the first act of this movie was not bad, but it did feel like setup. And I felt like it meandered just a little too much. And once we got into space, I feel like that's where the film really started picking up. Yeah,
that's where I was like really like engaged more than anything.
Exactly.
Which I mean I could kind of predict because I just love space films, and usually if you get it right, like I get really immersed in that shit.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very mature space film. Yeah. Probably the most mature, obviously up there with 2001, which, by the way, I haven't seen 2001.
That's probably the biggest cinema sin that Eric holds right now. At least my opinion is that he has not seen 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I have not. I've seen Solaris before I've seen 2001.
So you're on the side of the Russians. What a fucking asshole.
I know, right? I'm a dirty fucking Soviet.
Communist fuck. All right, Perry. It's time for you to say something, man. You're too quiet back there.
Well, one thing I will say, like, I will give you that this film is too dialogue heavy, but I feel like if it was more, like, a more visual storytelling, I would have felt, since it's already so similar to 2001: A Space Odyssey, if it wasn't so dialogue heavy, I feel like a lot of people would have dismissed it as a ripoff of 2001.
I could see that.
I will say I do agree with Carlos that it is too dialogue heavy in the film. There are certain times when the film doesn't know when to shut the hell up. But what really bothered me was in the first act when they were debating the morality of what they were doing at the space station, towards Solaris, and that really annoyed me. I don't want to go into great detail about it, but the fact that they were talking about the morality of it, it's like, okay, this is some serious spoon feeding going on right now. And the first act is definitely the weakest because there's literally 20 minutes where you're just watching a meeting of a person who saw the ocean at Solaris, just recounting what he saw.
Yeah. I like the scene, but I agree that it was too long. Yeah. I felt like it
served its purpose like 5 minutes ago. And it still was there. I'm like, shit.
One positive that y'all didn't bring up is I love how they let like Solaris, the ocean of Solaris, it felt like a character in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think that's
very
really
true.
important for films to do is when they make the setting of the film feel more just like a setting, feel more like a character.
It felt like a conscious agent.
Exactly. Because I think a lot of great films do that, like with Taxi Driver. New York City feels like a character in the movie. With Apocalypse Now, Vietnam feels like a character in the movie. That's something a lot of great films do, and I really appreciated that Solaris did that as well. Not to mention, I love how there were certain shots of like paintings on the wall, and you didn't know if they were real or if they were illusions that were recreations of like from the main character's memory. Because I feel like that was kind of implied, but still they left it ambiguous enough.
Yeah.
The music's incredible. Like, the score for this movie is fantastic.
It comes in very sparsely, but even like as I'm talking right now, I have it stuck in my head.
Yeah, they use it so effectively.
It's very
in this
beautiful.
film.
It's very beautiful and very catchy.
There's two sounds in this movie. You get an organ, and then you get just fucking the abyss sound.
Yeah.
Just like just this void of nothingness sound, and it's really eerie.
But that's all you need, really.
Yeah.
That's all
especially
you
for
need.
this film.
Yeah. One thing I will say that was slightly kind of upsetting for me when I was watching this was that I mentioned this earlier with these guys, but I felt like the plot structure of this was way too similar to Stalker.
Even from what I understand about Stalker, it seems similar.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, you get a group of people that are deep thinkers in a way, and you put them into an area that's just really weird and mysterious, and then, you know, weird, you know, things start happening that they can't explain, and then they use that as an excuse to have these really deep, you know, philosophical discussions about shit. And I don't know, I just felt like, and I know that Tarkovsky has films that aren't like this, and I understand that he has a pretty diverse, you know,
mirrors
filmography.
nothing like this movie
And-
or Stalker.
Yeah.
And Andrei Rublev is pretty different from what I understand.
Yeah.
It's like isn't it a war film, I think?
Yeah, Andrei
don't
Rublev,
quote me
yeah.
on it.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
But it was just, I don't know, I didn't want to see Stalker but in space, and sometimes I feel like that's kind of what I got a little bit. But either way, I did find it a bit more enjoyable than Stalker, just because me personally, I just took to the themes maybe a bit better. And again, I am a sucker for space movies that are shot with like brilliant camera work, and this film gave me that, so I couldn't help but really like it a lot when it comes to that aspect. So yeah, and again, like, this film does get, you know, it like Eric touched on, this is a pretty somber, pretty depressing film that doesn't it doesn't give you much light at the end of the tunnel. It's just like, this is life, deal with it kind of thing. And but I like it because, you know, it's honest and it's truthful, and it does go into stuff about, you know, what makes a human being really. Like, is it memories or identity, or is it really our like capability to feel love and to care about others. And I like films, you know, that do dive into that. And yeah, we have a bunch of films that already go into that kind of stuff, but you kind of have to give this film a lot of credit for the fact that it was made in 1972, I believe, or 1973.
Yes,
72.
72. So yeah, and you know, if I am comparing it to 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is what a lot of people are. I mean, they do have a lot of, you know, similarities to them. But I actually heard from Eric that this was the Russian response to 2001, which is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, because obviously it was a huge, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a huge success in the States.
Yeah.
And there was the whole space race happening, and then they were just like, well, we got an auteur here too. His name is Andrei Tarkovsky.
Yep.
Go ahead and make a fucking space film. He's like, all right, guys, I'm gonna make the most depressing film you've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, I do think that Kubrick had an approach that I just like a bit more, because he's just an excellent visual storyteller, and he also tackles a bunch of themes, like almost a lot about humanity in that film, and I think they're more or less the same runtime, but he tackles so much stuff in there, and he says so much in that film with just visual storytelling, basically, and I just commend him so much for that. And I can't give too much credit away from Solaris, because I think Perry made a good point about that. If this film just tried to have visual storytelling, then it would have been condemned as like a ripoff or something like that. So I'm glad that the film did try to go a different route and have dialogue heavy stuff. It's just I wasn't a fan of a handful of the dialogue that had to do with just basically explaining stuff to the audience, and that aspect of the dialogue did kind of bug me.
I'm glad it didn't go that cliche route of, oh, they're in space, so they're gonna go crazy, you know?
Yeah.
I was afraid it was gonna do that, but one of the characters in one of the second act of the movie, he's like, I would love to be insane right now because this is torture.
Yeah, because I know I'm not insane, and it's just
Right.
fucking driving me crazy.
Yeah, it's like, and after seeing the film, it's like I can understand, because having to live on that space station in Solaris for years and being so isolated but never going crazy, it's like it definitely like it almost would feel like insanity is a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And I love how this film like talks about how memories are the coping mechanisms for the coping mechanism for humanity.
Yeah.
That's how we cope with our terrible reality, is thinking of a better time. What? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was finished. You can go ahead.
Another pretty simple like concept that I feel like most people already know this, and it's kind of derivative to say, but they also kind of touch upon like the less you know, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
Like I said, I feel like there's a lot of expressions for it to say the same way, but I feel like it is really like, I feel like this is probably the most appropriate time it's ever been used. Like, the whole, you know, people who are happier think less about these very daunting fucking questions of life, like the meaning of life and what your purpose is.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I really do agree that ignorance is a bliss, kind of, but I don't think you should choose ignorance. But people who are more ignorant of things tend to be happier.
Yeah, definitely.
And I also like how it touched on like how without mystery and without not knowing things, life tends to be a little bit more like meaningless. It seems like the more mystery we have about life and the more that we want to know about things, that gives us the drive to keep searching.
Mm-hmm.
But if we just knew everything, then I mean, what the hell would we even be living for?
Right.
So I like how it also kind of, you know, it tried to touch on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is touching on like philosophy heavy shit, but I don't think knowing the meaning of life is a good thing.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, not real, because, you know, I don't know. I don't think like having an objective standard in life is like is good.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes people happy or whatever, because, you know, they have
because it's
religion
cookie cutter
and stuff,
and you're not so existential. But
yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and give our grades. So yeah, like I said, this is a visually breathtaking film. There's a lot of really like trippy space shots in this as well that were just really just beautiful and really like seductive to look at. Just kind of just like when you're watching it, just really sucks you in when you're watching it. And I didn't mind the pace as much in this one as I did in Stalker. The pacing, I was more willing to bear with it because I felt a bit more immersed this time around. And the acting's really good across the board, in my opinion. The themes are really thought-provoking, and I like the way most of them were fleshed out. It's just a handful of the dialogue was kind of bothersome to me, and the way and the fact that the film felt the need to have, you know, to actually conclude that way and kind of give the audience really zero sense of wonder about what happened was a bit, you know, was slightly annoying to me. But overall, this film does have a lot to offer for people who really love filmmaking, and I can't recommend this to a casual. I mean, I just can't.
No fucking way.
No Tarkovsky film.
Yeah, really at all. But only for people who, maybe if you're just really deep into like philosophy, but you're not a huge on film, maybe you'll like it. But, you know, if not, then I wouldn't recommend it to you. But yeah, overall, I really dug this film a lot, even though it does have some issues that really bothered me. So I'll give it the same grade I give Stalker, which is an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for Solaris.
Nice. Well, I must reiterate that I haven't seen Stalker. I can't really compare it to it. But it does seem similar. I feel like Stalker is a little bit more visual, because I feel like this movie's, it's no question about it, it's very dialogue heavy. But I feel like I see like a lot more stunning visuals with Stalker, like the screenshots or frames that I've seen. The one I feel like my only complaint with this film is I do feel like they should have added a little bit more visuals to it, because Tarkovsky's no fucking stranger to beautiful fucking scenery and shots. So maybe cut down on the, I don't know, it kind of makes me feel kind of normie to say, cut down on the dialogue just a little bit.
No,
maybe.
I mean, I feel that way.
And maybe some more visual storytelling. But if you want that, you should watch Mirror, because Mirror is like not a lot of dialogue at all, and it's all metaphorical and and really great storytelling. But I love this for what it is, and other than that, I don't really have issues with it. I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah, like, I love how depressing this film is. And
Me
like
too.
I said, we keep on saying it, but yes, it is a little bit too dialogue heavy. One thing I didn't say earlier that I wanted to get to was the transitions are fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And the sound design is great.
Yeah.
The sound design,
sound design's
all of
fantastic.
this films is amazing.
But yeah, I mean, I still love this movie. I think I enjoy it more than Stalker, but I think Stalker objectively is the better film. But with that being said, I'm going to give this an 8.7 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so like kind of in the middle, sort of.
By the way, I did not mean to wear this shirt. This was completely unintentional.
Yeah.
I just happened to wear it today, and I thought that shit was crazy. But, all right. I guess that's it, guys. Those are our thoughts on Solaris.
The classic.
The classic Solaris.
Yep.
We got to see it in the theater, which is pretty fucking cool to see on the big screen, honestly.
That is, not everybody can claim that.
It's
Yeah.
a really great experience.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'm definitely not going to forget this experience. But yeah, that's all we got to say. If you really enjoyed what we had to say, please give this video a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.